Okay, so we have a couple of problems. We have a system equations here we want to solve, and a system here that we want to solve. Homework for the weekend, of course, involves solving equations of 2, 3. Solving 2 or 3 linear equations in 2 or 3 variables. Okay, so people have trouble doing this, and this is pretty common. I think it goes back to overuse of calculators. People don't understand the numbers. So we've got to get used to understanding these numbers. This is a good exercise to help do that. Okay, so as I presented this last time, we numbered these equations 1 and 2. Okay. Then I told you what the first step should be. You do -2 times equation 1. You write this down. Okay? You write everything down that I'm writing down here, and then you fill it in. -2 times equation 1, meaning -2 multiplied by both sides of the equation. And then you just write down equation 2, because it doesn't say do anything with equation 2, except you got to write it down. Okay. Now, if we do that, I'm not going to always do this step. Right here, I'm going to multiply -2 times our equation 1. Would be -2 multiplied by 2x minus 4y. What I mean is we multiply both sides of the equation by -2, not just the 2x, everything. Okay, so that's going to be -2 times 2. You want to write that maybe off to the side someplace. Don't put your calculations into this scheme, or they kind of get in the way and you lose track of what you're doing. Okay, so off to the side, you do this, and then you say, well, that's going to be -4x plus 8y equals -4. And that's what we get when we do -2 times equation 1. And you can see that. We multiply 2 by -2, we get -4x. Multiply 2 by -4, we get 8. So that's going to be 8y. And -2 times 2 gives us -4. And that matches what we have down here. Okay. Then we write equation 2, which is 4x plus 3y equals 15. Now the next step is fairly straightforward. We add equation 1 to equation 2. And what do we get? Now by equation 1 in this step, I mean this equation, not this one. And equation 2 is this one, okay? So 1 and 2 always refer to the first and second equation in the last step. So again, we add those. Okay. Add these, -4x and 4x. This is equal and opposite to this. If you add two things that are equal and opposite, you get 0. You don't get 8x, okay? You don't get x, you get 0, okay? -4x and 4x gives you 0. Then 8y and 3y is 11y. -4 and 15 is 11. Okay. So if you didn't get these numbers, and at least some people didn't get those numbers, and aside from maybe copying down that 15 is a negative, some people did that pretty well correctly. You get 0 plus 11y equals 11. Then of course, 0 plus 11y is just 11y. As if you add 0 to any number, you get that number. So we have 11y equals 11. So now we solve for our variable, which is y. What do you get when you solve for y? Write out the steps, because we want to make sure that we totally understand the steps of what we're doing. Now, class was able to solve this equation, why the other half is still thinking about it, okay, well. Divide 11y by 11, we're gonna end up with, well, 11 divided by 11 is 1, we end up with y. And of course, we have to divide both sides by 11. That's going to give us y equals 1. Now, as I illustrated before, y equals 1. Plug that in here. Now, what equation do we get? Well, y equals 1 is the original equation. And I just indicate that by circling this, pointing to y, and then out of that, we get what equation? Plug 1 into this equation for y, we write first equation. We got 2x, we haven't done anything to 2x. And haven't done anything to -4, but y is now 1, so we write 1 for y1. And then we solve this equation for x. This far over. Should get it lined up with everything I already had. So I'm gonna write this one. And we solve this for x. Okay. So now what do we get? We get 2x minus 4 equals 2. We add 4 to both sides. And we get 2x equals 6. We divide both sides by 2. My alignment here is, I've got a glitch before that I had to work around. Okay. So x equals 3. Now, we would then plug y equals 1 and x equals 3 into each equation and show that both equations are satisfied. Okay. But we're going to go through this process again. I'm going to give you another problem. Here's equation one, here's equation two. Now, what I want you to do is I want you to multiply equation one by three. And then write equation two, which is much identical to what we did here, except the numbers are different. Then I want you to add. Then you write equation one plus equation two. Then you solve. Then you plug in. Then you solve. Which is what we did here. We added a multiple of, well, we changed our first equation, multiplying it by some number. Okay. In this case, the number is going to be three. Then we added equation one to equation two, same thing. I said solve. I said solve here. I told you solve for what? You're just going to solve for whatever variable you get. Then you got to plug in whatever you get for your solution, plugs in to either one of the equations. Okay. And that we solve the resulting equation. And that's the process. Okay, we're doing a little better here. When you do 3 times equation one, you're going to get 15x because 3 times 5 is 15. We're going to multiply the 3 by the 2y, giving you 6y. And 3 times 6 is 18. If you need to do that arithmetic, do it over here. Don't do it in here. Write out just the result of what you get when you do 3 times equation one. Then, when you write equation two, line up your x's. Okay, you got 15x up here. You're going to put 4x right below the 15x. You're going to put minus 6y right below 6y. And you're going to put minus 8 right below 18. So when you add equation one and equation two, you see that I've got 15 x's and I've got 4 x's, and that makes 19x. 6y and negative 6y, those are equal and opposite, and they give you 0. So we don't even have to write anything down. Adding or subtracting a 0 from 19x is still going to give us 19x. And then 18 and negative 8 gives us 10. Okay. Now, next step is to solve this equation. What do you get when you solve the equation? Write out the steps. And when we solve, we get x equals 10 over 19. Now, this isn't a whole number. Actually, I intended it was, but I made a mistake. That's all right, though. We got to put this now. Got to plug this in. Where do we plug this in? We take it and plug it into the first equation. We replace x by 10 over 19. Okay, some people got it, some people didn't. We plug in x equals 10 over 19. If we plug into the first equation, now, when I say plug into the first equation, you could plug into the second equation. That would be okay. Okay, it doesn't matter. I use the first equation because I can do this circle here, okay, plug in for X here. What's that give? Gives me the equation. The 5. There's an X, but now X is 10 over 19. So it's 5 times 10 over 19. Plus 2y equals 6. Everything in the first equation is here in white, except for X, which I wrote in a different color. Okay? This is a number that substitutes X. You have to understand that. Then we can simplify this a bit. We think, okay, that's 5 over 1, multiply numerators, multiply denominators. We get 50 over 19 plus 2y equals 6. Well, how do we solve this? We have the denominator. We multiply both sides by the denominator. One of your basic principles for solving equations. We have to multiply both sides by 19. And that gives us the equation 50 plus 38y equals 114. And that's just arithmetic. We multiply 19 by 50 over 19. 19 divide this 19 divide this 19, we get 50. 19 times 2 is 38. 19 times 6 is 114. Then we subtract 50 from both sides. And we get 38y equals 64. So that 38y over 38 will equal 64 over 38. And we get y equals 64 over 38. And of course, 64 and 38 are both multiples of 2. They're both even numbers, so we can divide both by 2, and we get 32 over 19. Now we check. I'm not going to go through the check for this problem. I'm not even completely sure if it's right. Let me just do something quickly in my head here. We're going to get 50. Well, 50 and 64 equals 14. Yeah, satisfies the first equation. And the second equation, we're going to get 40 minus 128, which is negative 88. Something wrong there. Right thing. I think I can get 40 minus 192. It's 152. Add that by 19. Yeah, we do get negative something. If I plug these two numbers into this equation, it works out. Plug them into this equation, both sides are going to end up equal. Okay, well, we've got a few minutes. Let me give you one more problem. Then we're going to follow the same steps. Okay, so and I didn't leave myself room. We want to try to organize this. Make sure you start on a blank page and line up everything so it looks a lot like this. And give yourself room, hopefully, that you can follow and complete all the steps in one column. Okay. So equation one is going to be. Might not be the same one I used a minute ago. There it is. And then I'm going to change a little bit. I'll keep it a little simpler than this. Could be negative 10x minus 4y. It's going to give us negative 14. Okay. Now, going to do equation one, equation two. I'm going to do equation one plus equation two. I'm going to solve. Plug in. So we don't have time to go through all the details. See how far I get in about 3 minutes. And then I'll complete the problem so you can kind of check your work. Okay, now 2 times equation one, you're going to get 10x plus 6y equals 16. Every term is multiplied by 2. You write the second equation, you have negative 10x minus 4y equals negative 14. We keep the x's aligned, we keep the y's aligned, we keep the equal signs aligned. And I'm a little careless with that sometimes too, so don't feel bad, but you're going to be a lot less confused if you keep everything aligned. 6y minus 4y is 2y. 16 minus 14 is 2. We solve. 2y over 2 equals 2 over 2. So y equals 1. We plug this in. We're going to plug this into the first equation. Again, we're okay to plug into the second equation. We're going to get 5x plus 3 times 1 equals 8. If we solve that, we get 5x plus 3 equals 8. 5x plus 3 minus 3 equals 8 minus 3. 5x equals 5. X equals 1. There's a process. We want it to look like this. Okay. So, did get that assignment done. Work on it.